After being reborn, I decided to write my sister's name on the marriage application. This time, I would help Sebastian Holt achieve his wishes. In this lifetime, I took the lead. I let my sister wear the wedding dress first and put the engagement ring on her finger. I personally orchestrated every encounter between Sebastian and my sister. When he took her to the capital city, I headed to Southport University without a second thought. In my previous life, even when I was over 50 years old, he and our son still knelt before me, begging for a divorce. This time, I would fulfill his final romantic destiny with my sister. Living this second life, all I wanted was to spread my wings and soar high, free from love's entanglements. Chapter 1. Just fill in your name and give it to me. Sebastian Holt impatiently tapped the table. I stared at the marriage application, my fingertips gently rubbing the rough edges of the paper as my thoughts drifted. In my previous life, I solemnly filled in my own name as if I were handling a sacred decree, then excitedly dragged Sebastian to buy our wedding things. All I ended up getting was a harsh scolding from him because he was rushing back to take care of Vivian Hayes during her period. Now I just responded dismissively, I got it. I glanced up at his anxious expression and that hand that kept checking his watch. He was wearing a white shirt today with sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing his well-defined forearms. I remembered that Vivian loved this look on him most. She said it made him look clean and refreshed. If you have something urgent to handle, go ahead, I said, suppressing the bitterness rising in my heart while feigning nonchalance. I'll submit it myself after filling it out. He was visibly relieved, his tone softening somewhat. Don't worry, since we're getting married, I'll take responsibility for you. But stop being jealous of Vivian from now on. If others find out, it'll damage her reputation. I remained silent. I had explained myself countless times in my previous life, but in his eyes, I was just a jealous and petty sister who could not tolerate her gentle and kind younger sister. He said nothing more and hurriedly turned to leave. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my erratic heartbeat, but my mind could not stop replaying scenes from my previous life. On our wedding night, he used the excuse of caring for my sick sister and never came home. Later, when his military posting required relocation, he only took Vivian along, saying she had never been to the capital before. Even on the day our son was born, Sebastian was not available as he was busy comforting Vivian through her divorce. Right up to my deathbed, our son, Albert Holt, would still earnestly plead, Mom, just divorce Dad. You're inferior to Aunt Vivian in every way. Dad has suffered by being with you all these years, so let him go. I lay in the hospital bed, looking at my indifferent husband beside me. He said nothing, and that deathly silence confirmed his agreement with those thoughts. I bit down hard on my lower lip until I tasted blood, then slowly released it. No, I would not repeat the same mistakes in this lifetime. I picked up the pen and slowly wrote 2 words in the applicant column, Vivian Hayes. Since Sebastian loved Vivian so much, he should have it his way. I handed the completed application to the clerk, took the marriage certificate, and left the city clerk's office. I felt no sadness. Instead, there was an indescribable sense of liberation. In my previous life, Vivian and I were adopted by the Holt family after our parents died in the line of duty. Vivian had a silver tongue and knew exactly how to charm people, winning over Sebastian's parents so completely that they treated her better than their own daughter. Sebastian's mother, Penelope Kane, even harbored early hopes of having Vivian marry Sebastian. However, with just one simple statement from Vivian, I don't want to compete with my sister, she managed to make Sebastian willingly choose me instead. Chapter 2. In reality, Vivian was just stringing Sebastian along. After all, Sebastian was merely a captain at the time. She wanted to wait for someone better. I went to the school to inquire about everything needed for university enrollment, including living expenses, before heading home with peace of mind. Returning to Sebastian's military housing, I heard Vivian's coquettish voice the moment I walked in. Seb, you actually rushed back to keep me company instead of staying with my sister. Won't she be angry? I can spend time with her anytime, but you're always in pain during your period. I worry about leaving you alone at home. Vivian laughed happily, then put on a dejected act. Seb, will you still treat me well after marrying my sister? Of course. Sebastian's tone was firm. Who else would I treat well? If your sister treats you badly, I'll divorce her. I clenched my fists tightly to suppress the heartache welling up inside. Even with a second chance at life, hearing my own husband speak so coldly about me still hurt. I composed myself and walked into the house as if nothing had happened. Sebastian emerged from Vivian's room with a trace of embarrassment on his face. I am just checking on Viv because she wasn't feeling well. I hummed indifferently and turned to head to my room. In my previous life, I fought with him countless times over their inappropriate intimacy. In this lifetime, I refused to waste my time and energy. He called out to me, Rachel, how about we buy some wedding favors to distribute to the other military wives in the housing complex? I looked at him with surprise, then realized this was probably his way of compensating for my unusual silence. No need. There's no point in such formalities. He was stunned, probably finding it hard to imagine I would refuse such a proposal. Are you angry because Seb took care of me, Ratch? Vivian emerged from her room with a face full of grievance and innocence. She was wearing the dress I had bought explicitly for our wedding photos, something I saved up half a year for in my previous life but never dared to wear even once. Seeing my gaze, Vivian frantically explained, I saw this beautiful outfit by your bedside today and wanted to try it on. I forgot to change out of it. She lowered her head, wringing her fingers like a child who had done something wrong. Sebastian instinctively began, Rachel, don't. I interrupted him calmly, it looks good on you. Keep it. I've never worn it anyway. I still remembered the faint smell of blood and sweat on that dress, and how I ran home crying in the middle of the night. The memory disgusted me now. Under their astonished gazes, I returned to my room and locked the door. I pulled out the folder containing my acceptance letter from Southport University. In my previous life, I wanted to live in Southport, especially Southport University offered my dream major in finance and economics. In my past life, I gave up my education to support Sebastian and willingly stayed home to care for his parents. This time, I still had a chance, so I wanted to live only for myself. I flipped through the calendar. There were only 10 more days until I could leave this place. Time was tight, but I had to use every minute I could spare. A sudden knock interrupted my thoughts, and I opened the door impatiently. Sebastian stood there holding a bowl of noodles, his tone gentle as he said, "You must be hungry. I made you some instant noodles." I was dazed for a moment. In my previous life, he was either cold as ice toward me or only spoke harshly. Chapter 3. I had not seen Sebastian acting this tender and affectionate in a long time. "No need. I already ate outside." "How is that possible? Aren't you always reluctant to spend money?" His words stung. I used to be reluctant to spend money, living frugally and spending most of my part-time earnings to buy him things. Now that I was going to university, there would be plenty of expenses, so every penny needed careful planning. I looked up at him, my tone calm as I said, "I remember a few days ago, I gave you the money to buy wedding supplies. You didn't seem to buy anything. Give me the money back." He froze, then awkwardly explained, "That money. Well, I already bought leather shoes for Viv with it." I could not help but curl my lip. How predictable. It was the same old story. "Well, if there's nothing else, I'm closing the door. I want to sleep. I'll give you the money tomorrow." His tone carried some irritation. "We're husband and wife. Do you really need to be so petty?" I could not help but snort coldly. "So after you use my hard-earned savings to buy things for someone else, I'm not even allowed to be annoyed?" Knowing he was in the wrong, he still muttered stubbornly, "You're so unreasonable." I could not be bothered to argue further and slammed the door shut. Over the next few days, I sold off some worthless possessions, mementos from my previous life that once held meaning. Now they seemed like nothing but cheap junk. I packed them all up and sold them to a scrap dealer for a pittance. That afternoon, while continuing to pack, Sebastian appeared before me holding some money. He stiffly said, "Here's your money." I took the money and nodded. "Thanks." He looked at me with mixed emotions, his gaze falling on my packed luggage. "I'm planning to have Viv come with me to the capital. You don't need to pack." I did not stop packing and simply nodded. He seemed unaccustomed to this attitude from me, appearing somewhat uneasy. "What's wrong with you lately? You're like a completely different person." I turned around impatiently. I did not want any complications. Although Sebastian did not love me, if he discovered that Vivian's name was on the marriage license, he might very well divorce her and marry me for her sake. I wanted no further entanglement with this despicable pair. "Nothing. I just want to organize my things so I can move back to the countryside after you go to the capital." He breathed a sigh of relief and explained, "It's not that I don't want you to tag along. It's just that Viv has never seen the capital and wants to visit. I'll bring you there in a few months." I nodded absent-mindedly. In my previous life, he never sent for me for 8 whole years. Only after Vivian married a high-ranking general's son from the capital did he bring me there in despair. He watched me with unease. Usually, I would talk his ear off about everything and anything when we were alone. Now that I was barely speaking, he seemed on edge. "Didn't you always want to take wedding photos? Let's go to the photo studio tomorrow." That would not work for me as I plan to buy university supplies tomorrow. Just as I was about to make an excuse, Vivian walked in and affectionately hugged Sebastian's arm. "Seb, what photo studio? I want to take pictures too." Sebastian smiled and patted Vivian's head. "Sure, we'll all go together tomorrow."